let's learn how to command a room. This episode is going to be gold. If you want to learn how to command a room, whether in person or virtually, we're going to be diving into all the not so secrets that I share with my clients about how you can grow your influence by becoming a more confident speaker. All right, let's dive in and talk about this. How can you command a room? And this is going to be kind of the secret, but really not so secret because I'm going to be telling you all about it. The secret for speakers to really grow their influence. And if you're going, Julie, well, I'm not a speaker. Yes, you are. Do you have to have tough conversations with people? Do you ever have to present information? Are you a small business owner that needs to present to groups, to networking events, to share about your business and what they do? Are you a leader in an organization that needs to influence people on decisions? You're a speaker, so start thinking of yourself that way. So I'm going to talk through, this is the number one thing that we get requests for at my firm from clients. Whether this is one-on-one clients, we do a lot of one-on-one coaching from new leaders who are really working on owning their voice as newer leaders, all the way up through C-suite level executives who are working on really owning their voice and influencing more decisions from a higher, more strategic standpoint as you continue to move in an organization or as you continue to move up within your business and the clients that you work with. It's more and more important that you understand the level of detail that you need to be delivering to your audience, and also knowing that people need different ways that you present the information, going from in the weeds to, again, more of that strategic standpoint. And so when we're working with our executive clients, who are really trying to influence big decisions within the organization or speaking to the board, we're helping them all the way from before they get to that moment in that meeting, to how they show up in that meeting, to what they do after that meeting. Also, this is a common request for us when it comes to trainings and sessions that we do with teams or organizations. Hey, we need our people to be able to communicate more effectively. We need them to have more executive presence. We need them to be able to have more public speaking skills, either internally within the organization or because they're going out and talking to our clients, right? So this is something that we hear a lot. So this episode, I'm going to dive into so much. I have some notes that I'm going to be looking at here because there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but buckle up because this is going to help you whether you're in person or virtually trying to have more of that influence and really command that room. So first of all, one of the things that I always tell people is it always starts before you get into the room. Again, when I say into the room, I mean the virtual room or the actual in-person room. Your prep work starts before you get into that room. And actually, last week's episode that we did was all about this. So if you didn't check that episode out, go and listen to that episode because it's all about really your mindset and your energy, about visualizing yourself and the confidence of getting into that. So I talk about some of the clients that I have, some of the things that we've been doing for them to really make sure that you're in the right headspace, you're in the right mindset before you do that. So some of the things we talk about is days leading up to the event, making sure that you're visualizing what you want to have happen, not what you don't want to have happen. How are you showing up? What's your energy like? What are you saying in that meeting? Sometimes even, what are you wearing? What does the room look like? How are you feeling? All of that is really, really important. And I never like to gloss over that because I always tell this again when I start talking to any type of client, from an individual to an organization that wants to work on these skills for themselves or for their teams or for their leaders. I always say the external pieces, how do we put the talk together? What words should we say? The presentation is super important. But if we don't address the internal stuff too, which is our mindset, which is our own confidence around doing it, that is, I could tell you exactly what to say in the meeting, but you're still not going to be able to show up your best, and you're not going to be able to carry that forward and actually create long-term sustainable change and results. So it's super important that we do that inner work and the outer work because it usually is coming from that place of lacking your own confidence. So again, go check out that episode for more. I'm not going to rehash everything that we talked about, but I even give you some questions to ask yourself and some things to do to help you prep for the visualizing the way that you want to show up. So again, really important. Overall tips just in general when you want to start to command a room more, first of all, is you need to be prepared. I cannot tell you how many conversations I have had with people where they're like, I don't like to be too practiced. I don't want to sound like I have it memorized, or, I'm just really good at kind of going with the flow in the meeting. You're not as good as you think. And I'm saying that in the most loving way. Maybe you are the best. You're so great at being able to read the room and switch up your approach. That's super important. That's a really strong skill as a speaker. But every Every leader who has been successful in being able to command a room, every speaker who's been successful in commanding a room practices, and they're prepared. The more prepared that you are, you know your content, you know your audience, you know what you want to say, the more present. And actually, it sounds counterintuitive, but the more practiced you are, the actually less practiced you will sound. And I mean, because if you really know your content, if you really know your points, you're able to be more present with the people in the room, which again, this is a skill set. This is more of a learned skill set of really reading the energy in the room, noticing when maybe people are kind of checking out or getting disengaged, or they seem confused and you need to do a check-in. If you're so worried that you've either memorized your content, but you don't really know it, like you memorized it, but you don't know it, there's a difference. Or if you have not practiced it and all you're worried about is, oh my gosh, I'm so behind on time, I forgot all these important points, then it's all about you and it's not about them. And as a successful speaker in any situation, being able to command a room is about them. It's not about you. And so you can be more present and notice what questions they have and feel more confident speaking on the spot to their questions or to their concerns or what the energy of the room, the more practiced you are. So you need to be prepared. You need to practice. You need to know ahead of time, whether it's just having a conversation in a meeting all the way up to giving a presentation. You need to practice. And again, the best speakers, even though you might think that they don't practice, they practice. They're practicing. They know what they're going to say. So you need to practice. You need to be prepared. You also need to know your point and you need to know why it matters to them. You need to know your point and you need to know why it matters to them. What's in it for them? No matter what the situation is, if you are trying to command a room, if you're trying to share information, influence a decision, whatever it might be, you need to know and they need to know what your point is. Like, get that out of the way right off the bat. Whenever I'm coaching people through this and they're getting ready for, a pitch or a presentation to a group of people, I always say, like, right off the bat, I want you to tell me why we're here today, right? Especially if you're somebody who's going into like influence decisions in a meeting or to share a project update or whatever it might be, or you're going into share an update with, your clients on information. This is why we're meeting today. This is what we want to get out of it, right? This is obviously separate than if you're like a speaker or at an event, you're like the keynote, but this is more so when you're trying to command a room and you're presenting information. They need to know what your point is and they need to know what you want from them and why they should care about this, right? You also really need to know your audience and who is going to be in that room. And if you don't know, you need to ask. You need to get more information about who is going to be in that room. What levels, what departments, what companies, what are their challenges, what are their goals. Apply this to whatever situation you're thinking of right now for yourself. You need to know your audience, who is in that room, and what is their level of understanding. So again, if you're in an organization or something and you're going to talk to a group of people, you need to know what different levels are going to be in that meeting, because that helps you figure out what level of detail you need to bring to that meeting. This is actually a common struggle that I see when people are really working on their presentation skills, is really struggling, especially as you continue to grow, with getting stuck again in the weeds and all of the data and all the metrics. And some of my clients work in very technical industries, and so they do need some of that data. However, we also need to have the bigger picture and being able to tie that to the storytelling and add some color and add some stories, some humor, some engagement into it, even if it is the most technical and quote unquote dry material. That is an ability. So you need to know who's in the room and what level of information do they want, and how can you kind of go from in the weeds to zooming out and seeing the big picture and really the impact instead of just the numbers or the metrics or the data. What does that mean for them? How does that impact decisions? How does that impact ROI? How does that impact business results? Whatever your thing is. So you need to know your point is and why it matters to them. You need to know your audience, who's going to be in the room, what is their expectations of the meeting, what questions might they be asking, already thinking ahead of time of what questions they might have for you and baking that into your presentation and knowing what level of detail that they want. And if you don't know those things, you need to ask and you need to get that information, right? Again, what I kind of said it before, but in general, you need to paint the picture of where you're headed. One of the most frustrating things for somebody in a meeting, and I'm sure you've been in meetings like that, is someone is either speaking, they're presenting something, and you have no idea what they're talking about. Like they just started diving right in and they gave you no context or direction as to where you're headed. I bet you're thinking of an example right now because I can think of many. Don't be that person. Set the stage for them right away. This is where we're headed. This is what we want to accomplish. This is what our goal is today. Whatever, again, your situation is, don't make them guess. Don't make them do the work, because you know what they're going to do? They're going to check out. They're going to be on their phone. They're going to be doing their emails. They're going to get up and run to the restroom, whatever it is, because they're like, I don't know where we're headed with this. So take them along on the journey with you. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going next. Really make it a very fluid experience for them as you're giving this presentation. And then, I kind of mentioned some advanced skills, but as you get more comfortable, and this only comes with time, like you're not going to have confidence right away if this is not something that you're used to doing, but you have to have, I always say, courage followed by consistent action. Courage to do it followed by consistently doing the thing. That is going to build your confidence. And as you do that, you're going to get more and more comfortable. And one of those more advanced skills that you get to is being able to read the room and the audience. Again, the more you know your content, the more prepared you are, the more present that you can be in that situation, in that moment, to notice, ooh, I'm kind of losing people. Maybe I need to ask a question. Maybe I need to switch up my energy. Maybe I need to physically move my body so that people see me moving. Maybe I need to change my voice. Maybe I need to ask if anyone has questions. Maybe I need to pause so I re-get their attention. These are all techniques, but you need to be able to know where your audience is at. Okay, so those are kind of some of the high level. Now let's talk a little bit about in-person versus virtual, and I'm just going to share a couple tips for you. So first of all, let's talk about with in-person. So one of my biggest tips here for commanding the room is to know the room. Know what the setup is going to be like. If you have not been into that room before, see if there's a way that you can get into that room. Is it a conference room? Is it a room that are you going to be sitting? Or are you going to be standing? Is there a screen for you to present, or do you need to have things printed out? All of these make you look professional, make you look prepared, and help you to command that room, is to know all of that. You don't want to get in there and all of a sudden go, oh my gosh, well I had slides prepared, but this room doesn't have anything, and now all of your information doesn't make sense. So you need to know the room, you need to know the setup, you need to know what that space is going to look like. And again, if you don't know, go check it out. You also need to really think about your body language. It's not just, so we've got the practicing and like our energy before we get into the room. We've got being prepared. And then in that moment, it's not just about what you say. It is not just about what you say. There's also so many other factors behind the energy, behind the words that you're saying, your body language. So when we think of body language, really thinking about, what is that energy that you are giving off? Okay, so if you're sitting, especially if you're sitting, let's just say you're sitting down and your shoulders are all hunched in and you're kind of just looking down at your notes and you're flipping through things and maybe you're nervous so your hands are shaking. Think about how that comes off to the other people. Do they have confidence in what you're presenting? How influential are you? If you're sitting, I want you to sit up straight. I want you to roll your shoulders back. I want you to take up space. I want you to make eye contact, right? Make eye contact with different people throughout the room. If you are glancing up at your slides or looking down, that's fine. But making sure you're scanning the room and you have this confidence in your body. If you're standing, again, really figuring out what does the space of the room look like, but making sure that you're standing confident, standing with your feet sort of hip shoulder apart, not wiggling around too much. I always say that I kind of joke that I've had to look at pictures of myself or videos of myself speaking before, and I'm like, what am I doing with my legs? Like sometimes I do this weird thing where I cross my legs when I stand and it looks like I have to go to the bathroom. I'm like, nope. So even I need to still practice that. So put your feet, really be sturdy in your feet in that confident, powerful stance, rolling your shoulders back, even sometimes practicing how you're using your hands. I know I was coaching somebody one time at a conference. She was actually getting ready to go on stage for a panel, and I had just done a breakout session around speaking with confidence. And she came up to me. She's like, I'm getting ready to go on stage for this panel. This is in front of hundreds of women for this women's conference. And she's like, I don't ever know what to do with my hands. So I literally right then was giving her some tips on what she could do. So maybe even practicing what feels comfortable for you. Do you speak with your hands a lot? Are you going to be holding a clicker? Are you going to be holding your microphone? All of those things. Another tip that I always give to people is to move a little bit if you have the space. So if you have enough space, a tip that I've given to my clients before, don't be the one pacing back and forth and giving your audience whiplash where they're like trying to follow you. Make your point in one spot. Stand still, make your point, scan, look at the audience or look at the people you're talking to. And then with the next time you transition between points or maybe slides, move your body and maybe go over to the right a little bit. Stop. Look at the audience there, move to left. Again, for some of you might be in small little conference rooms, to some of you might be on stages doing this, but you can use the same technique. And that really helps for people to notice that you're moving, makes everyone in the room or the audience feel engaged, but doesn't feel like they're like trying to scan and follow you. The other technique that you can use, and this is again a tip for really in person or virtually, is your voice. Your voice is such an amazing tool to use as a speaker and when you're presenting information, and can really help you with commanding that room and having influence. How well spoken are you in your voice? How intentional are you in the words that you are using? And a common misconception for people is that they feel like you need to be this really loud, outgoing, and bubbly, extroverted personality to be an effective speaker and to command a room. And that couldn't be any further from the truth. What you need to show up as is your authentic self, because you'll have the most confident. And there are some people who are much more soft-spoken and introverted who are very effective speakers because when they speak, you listen. And there are some people who are very extroverted who don't make great speakers or presenters because they might have too much energy and maybe it's off-putting for people. So it's really finding what is authentic for you while also knowing the environment of your room. And so in the people that are going to be there, what's appropriate for that type of environment. And in regards to your voice, I always talk about your tone, your pitch, and your pace and switching things up, the power of the pause. When you can pause, see what I did there? When you can pause, it gets people to listen again, right? There's so many amazing things with the pause. It gets people to listen. It can give you a minute. So let's say you're nervous, or maybe you're trying to think of what you're talking about next, or maybe you've noticed that you're talking kind of fast. When you pause, it has so much. It allows you to catch your breath. It allows them to catch up with what you were just saying. It allows something really important that you just said to sink in for them. It can get their attention again. There are so many things. So the power of the pause, but then also switching up the way that you say things. When you're trying to be excited and share, like kind of get the energy of the room up, you might speak louder and a little bit faster. And then maybe you're going to intentionally slow down and you're going to change up the tone of your voice. All of that is really effective. And so really thinking, and if this doesn't come natural to you, this is something you need to practice. What parts of your presentation or of your story make sense for you to switch that up. And as uncomfortable as it can be, I always encourage you to either do it in front of a mirror or record yourself and watch it back, because that's the only way to get better. Now, a couple little tips for virtual. A lot of the things that I shared are very relevant for that. The content, how you're going to prep, knowing who's going to be in the virtual room, all of that. A couple differences is notice if you're going to be sitting or standing. For me, if I'm doing virtual speaking or presentations, I always try and stand. I have a standing desk. It makes me feel more like I'm in the moment and kind of getting into the right space of speaking. So if you have an opportunity to do that, or if you're going to be sitting, being really mindful of your lighting, being mindful of your camera, what's in your background. And again, your posture and your body language are really important. Does it look like you're commanding the room? Does it look like you're just looking down at your notes, or are you scanning and trying to look at the camera? When you look at the camera virtually, people feel like you're looking at them. So it's making that eye contact for them. Even if you have your notes, this is again something you want to practice, is having your notes, but also being able to really look still at the camera and maybe looking down, but also looking again at the camera. And again, that part of that is just practicing and how you can effectively have those notes. Okay, we've already gone through so many things. So let's do a little bit of a recap. First of all, if you want to really be able to command a room, these are the things that are going to help you. This is your toolkit, your starter kit for you, and take what you need to work on and pat yourself on the back for the things you've already worked on. So a couple of things that we talked about, right? First of all, it's remembering that the energy that you bring in and visualizing yourself being successful is super important. Check out the episodes where we've talked about that as well. Being prepared, practicing, knowing your point, knowing who's going to be in the room and what level of detail. How can you get engagement from the group? How can you use storytelling, even if you have, a lot of stats or data that you're sharing? What's the impact? What's the bigger picture? Paint the picture for people on where you're going, where you are now, and where you're headed. Let them know what you are going to do in this meeting, in this presentation, in this talk. Really be mindful of your energy, your body language, and use your body and use your voice as tools to help you to command the room. And remember, whether you're in person or virtual, practice, practice, practice. I hope these tips were helpful. I cannot wait for you to get to your next speaking, presentation, or influential moment where you can use these. Please go ahead, share this out, tag me, let me know what stood out for you. And of course, if you're somebody who's working on improving your speaking presentation skills, reach out to me. Check out the show notes, set up a conversation with me, whether this is for you one-on-one and you want to get better at this, or you're somebody who works within an organization or a small team who has other people that you want to help out. We have lots of conversations going on with individuals and organizations right now, helping them to level up their teams, their individuals, and their speaking skills. So would love to talk to you about what that support could look like as well. All right, go out there and happy speaking.